Hi guys, welcome to another episode of It Was Never Personal with me, Yami Wilfred. Oh my god, I have to tell you this. It's very, very interesting because I had to scoop in this episode after I was done with the whole production thing, but I'm like, oh my god, I just but I'd like to say thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in and everything. But let's get started. So what are we gonna really talk about today? Well, it's very interesting because today, or this week's episode, we're really going to talk about why it is essential to love your inner child. You know, why it is essential for you to actually now connect with your inner child. It's all about this little boy that I'm about to put up in here. This little, look at her. Look at her. Do you see him? You see that boy over there? This is why I did season two ultimately, because it was all about this little boy here, and he's actually the one who is in control. He's the one who's actually reacting. He's the one who gets his feelings hurt when people say stuff, think stuff, and whatever. He's the one who's taking it all personal. You know what I mean? And with this guy, let me tell you this, ultimately we get to the paradox of all truths with this guy over here, because with him, it's personal, and it is my job, your job, to actually take him beyond the illusion of taking things personal, because it was never personal. Now, if you are very aware, you will realize that I'm very sweaty because I have my, what do they call it? I just came from swimming. I'm taking my swimming classes, I guess. And I have a little, my body's not reacting well because the water was cold, which I love, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to have flu or whatever. So now I am having a runny nose. At the same time, I'm having a sweaty face. But anyways, without further ado, let's start and say hi to this little kid over here. I have this little picture of me over here. This is little Yappy Wilfred. My mom says I was about 8 months or so, working towards my first month, and I was always crying. I guess they say that. But I'm on top of my aunt, who I love so much, Auntie Days. Kay. I love her so much, and I'm on top of her, and I'm there, and you can see that I've got my poses on top. I've always been photogenic. I don't want to be gently, but anyways, welcome to another episode of It Was Never Personal with me, Yami Wilfred, where we get to talk about this little boy that I just told you about. Okay, now, this is the thing. It's about time we get to relieve, or actually just set our parents free of that duty of actually taking care of the us. You know what I mean? Yeah, because this little kid over here, actually, the only parent that this little boy, that little girl, that little they, it, whatever you name it, needs you. So it's about time we just we just take that from our parents who did their best, and no shame, no whatever. Just it's about time we now go beyond the limitations of our kids, and like I said from the episode of why it's essential to mother our inner child, whether your parents were good or not so good, at the end of the day they did their best. And the world out there, even if your parents were good, the world out there is not, honey. There's so much pressure in a lot of things, and oh my god, I'm back to school. Not like I've been away to school, but I'm at school, and I see a lot of people who are playing this whatever, but let me go back to the episode. So it's essential that we go beyond the limits of our parents, because they were doing the best they could at the moment with the knowledge, understanding, and awareness they had at that present time. And I know that it's very difficult for some of us to hear that, especially when your parents were not so good, or when you think your parents could have done better. But trust me, they did the best they could. Now it's your time. You, for example, me, my 21 year self over here, I know that I have to mother this little kid over here, and tell him, honey, it was never personal, and really try and give him that love that I wanted to get from my parents. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, this is the thing. As little kids, we get to as little kids, we learn from our parents. And this is not really actually learning what they say to us, but we rather record. We are so aware that we observe, because like I said, we are in the theta state. So we are observing and recording everything they do, from how they react to certain type of foods, to religion, to talks about sex and stuff like that. So we really see how they do it. And as we grow up, ultimately, and we also observe the relationship that our parents have between themselves, between me and be like the type of, like, how they really actually relate to us, and how they relate, most importantly, to themselves. We really do observe that, and we take it personal, because like I said, with this little kid over here, everything is personal, everything, honey. So as we grow up, we are, because as we grow up, we tend to recreate unconsciously, unconsciously we recreate that emotional environment, the emotional consciousness that we grew up when we were little kids, because we relate to that as home. That is why I always like, I'm not really keen on giving advice to people who are in a relationship that is abusive, because even if I say go out of that relationship, they will ultimately get out that of get out the relationship and find a new one and replay the same. They will replay the same tape, meaning that they will find another guy who's actually going to, or another girl or another person who's going to actually abuse them, or who they're going to abuse, because that is what they know. But it is our responsibility right now. It's your responsibility to take that little kid over here, who knows home as something which is very abusive or whatever, and take it beyond the limitations of your parents. You owe it to yourself, and that is self-love. That is self-love. It's not easy, but it's doable, and we'll get to how you actually do it. You know what I mean? But I remember how I was like, so over the holidays, I was really keen and very open to really learning about my mother and my father. My mother's side, it was very easy because I could see she's very open. But my father, oh my God, talk about someone who's actually closed off, much more like my sister, like I said. But, I took time to really see their patterns and which patterns they have that I do have, because I knew that I recreate some, like the personality, some of my personalities that I have are both from my mom and from my father, because these are the guys who actually came up here and looked up to, unconsciously. I then recreated those type of incidences that reminded me of what I saw when I was little, and you do the same thing. But it's our duty to take ourselves, that inner child, beyond that, because for so long I've been so, and it's so apparent, it's very in my peripheral vision right now of how awkward I feel upon someone doing something for me, because to me it's like, what's the payoff? What are you looking for? Okay, you're doing this for me, what do you really want? Like, you cannot just buy me a pen for free. It's if, like, you buy me that pen because I'm going to help you study or something. Like, it's so weird. But ultimately, people, real love or genuine friendship really exists out there, and I've heard friends like Bararu, who is actually a good friend of mine. I'll show you what she says for me. But anyways, let's keep on talking about what I am here to talk about. Now, how do you go beyond the limitations of your parents? Well, first of all, you have to set your own personal truths. Your own personal truths. I do, because my parents, our parents, we don't, me and my parents, we don't share the same belief system. Right of right, and this is not only about religion and whatever, but it cuts across a lot of things, a whole lot of things, which I like, and I'm just saying that you have to find your own personal truths, because as you were a little boy growing up, you may have been told by your parents, by your family members, that maybe you are not good enough. It's like you have to do ABC, then you're good enough. You have to get good grades, then you're good enough. You have to look a certain way, then you're good enough. You have to act a certain way, and then you're good enough. You have to eat a certain way, then you're good enough. If your weight is not this at this range, you're not good enough. There was like always a condition. It was conditional. But now it's time for you to actually set that unconditional love for yourself, because ultimately you are worth it. You are deserving of it. Now, I've set my own personal truths, and to show you what I mean about that, so recently I got this other keychain from my friend Bararu, who's making these things, and you better go get one. It's very cheap. So it's a keychain, and I actually have ordered multiple. I think I'm gonna have like 6 or whatever of them. Aside from this one, so I got this one over here. It's written, let me show you. This one is written, I am lucky, life loves me. Life loves me. And that's true. That's my personal truth that I've created for myself. And I'm telling you, you could never, I cannot tell you how much I've been in this state of, what do they call it? State of, the honeymoon phase. I'm not in a relationship, but I'm in a relationship with myself. And I've been in this honeymoon phase for the past 3 or 4 months or so, because of the personal truths that I've created for myself. Oh my gosh, something is happening. Thank you. Now, because of that, it's so great. I love it, and I see it every day. Yeah, so that is it's very crucial for me. So that is my number one personal truth, that life loves me, and I'm so lucky. I cannot tell you how much I've been it was first day I arrived in school. A lot happened, and many cases, including this one over here. The fact that I'm shooting after I just kind of like lost at a recording, it's so magical. To me, but I'm not gonna waste a lot of time on that. I guess that's for another episodes on season 3. Now listen, I was saying this is the other part that I did, and then I did this one over here. It was never personal. Oh my god, I wish you could see what I did, what I wrote. But I wrote, it was never personal. I hold this keychain everywhere I go. I have it in my pocket. It's kind of like my affirmation, but this one is very active, and I'm living it. It was never personal. That is the number one thing that I've ever learned, primarily by myself. Oh, I came to realize by myself, with the books that I'm reading for sure and everything. But that is the most number one valuable lesson I've learned. If I had something that I could say to somebody, it was never personal, because it covers everything. And that is my other personal truth, which I've created for myself. Now, these things, listen, I came up with them, and with the help of the books that I read and everything that I do, as my way to getting through and navigating this life. It's so great. I love it, and I implore you to find yourself some personal truths that you really hold dear to your heart, and use them, because it really works. Yeah. It works if you work it, so work it because you work it. Yeah. Now, the other thing that you can do, or that I have found to be very fruitful for me, is to have an honest, vulnerable, trustful conversation with that little kid that I've been showing you over here, this kid over here. And I do believe in self-talk. I think you know at this point. Like I really do it. And each morning, if ultimately, even this morning right now, today morning, when I was walking to school, I I had a self-talk and we were really talking about things from the past. But listen, I wasn't really now because I think it's because I've done it for so long that now I don't need to spend time in the past because the things that I was talking about really my past was like recent things like things that happened 2 weeks ago, last night. You know what I mean? Things like that. So I try and keep it in the this moment, because everything this is the thing. This kid over here, you see this kid over here, the hurtful things that have happened, the hurtful things that I did, or he did, and he's carrying guilt over, he's still carrying it's still happening today, the hurtful things that I have experienced or he has experienced even 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that's still happening today because there's no time in space. So I don't really need to go into the past, like go and shoot and go. What? No, it happens today and something will happen. And I know that, okay, Wilfred, Yemi Wilfred, I talked to him, Yemi Wilfred, I know you feel such and such a way because they did that. But what is really going on when I put X-ray eyes on the situation? I know that this incident that was happening right now, it's not even the emotions that I'm feeling, the feelings that I'm feeling right now are not really about what is happening right now. It's actually about something that happened way back that was triggered or awakened or kind of like yeah, triggered by this situation that was happening right here. And then now that is how I say, okay, I deal with the past, but in the present moment, because it just came up when something happened, when somebody said something, when somebody didn't look me in a certain way, when I twisted a situation into my own things, when I concluded situations which never even had anything to do with me, because first of all, it was never personal. And that moment, because when something happens and I get to feel those emotions of or the feelings that point to me going, okay, I feel unlovable or unworthy. I know that I forgot that it was never personal, and I have to remind this little boy that it was never personal. But I have to actually be honest and truthful, acknowledge his feelings, acknowledge his feelings, and then take his feelings out of the situation and place the situation over there and break it down, break it down and be honest because truthfully, and this thing, I don't study people. I don't go around breaking down stuff and saying that people are this. I place it onto myself and I take accountability and then I go, well, this is what was happening. Well, that is that thing. I'm not even going to break it down for them because I don't even know them. It was never personal. It's not that deep. I just have to deal with mine. I just have to clear my I have to rub my name off of it. I just have to rub my name off of it and it works. Yeah. So that is what I'm talking about. Having that honest, trustful, honest conversation with that little boy. And trust me, he knows when you're lying. She knows when you're lying. It knows when you're lying. I remember one day I was scrolling through my phone and I saw this other quote from Whitney Houston, which is, you can fool people, and you can fool situations, but you can never fool yourself. And that is very truthful because that boy over there, they know the truth. I see a lot of people acting so mean and so rude and acting so ignorant and so unconscious and oblivious, and I never really have time to really break it down for them. But because I know that when they're sleeping, when they go to bed, when they ultimately sit with themselves, they know the truth. They know it and I'm not going to waste my time trying to tell them something that they already know. Like, duh, come on. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Now, this is the other thing. You have to let go of the victim identity that this little child over here has. Um, the victim identity that this little child has identified with, that has actually made an identity out of. What do I mean by victim identity? Victim identity, I mean, you should always listen to how people talk to themselves or talk about themselves or how they talk about other people because, a fraction of how other people talk about other people or how you treat other people is only a small fraction of how you treat yourself. And how you treat yourself is how you treat this little boy. So be very aware of how people talk about people or about themselves. They're always looking for a way to make themselves victims. It's like, oh my God, that test was so hard. Say didn't even teach us that thing. Or oh my God, he broke up with me because he doesn't deserve me. Like everybody's always trying to point a finger, and it's very few people who actually can take accountability. And I remember this other day, my friend Pilgrims, oh my God, she moved me the way she did it. It was so, that girl, she's very smart. She knows it. She's very, very smart, because she knows the truth. She knows the truth, although she spends most time playing small, but she knows the truth, and she can take accountability for her actions. That's why I like her. But ultimately, the other day, she was acting a little bit weird, because she reminded me of this other girl, of this other lady we saw on a restaurant, who wasn't actually quite nice to other people. And I was scared. I told her, that scares me, my friend. Because like I said, how you talk to other people, how you relate to other people is only a small fraction of how actually you deal or relate and talk to yourself. So watch your mouth, watch your thoughts. You remember what I said about that? Okay. So now, like I was saying, um, we always want to make ourselves victims, and the victim always says, I'm right because they're the ones who are wrong. They pained me, they hurt me, and I don't have anything. Like, oh, this life is so hard on me, life is always happening, bad things are always happening for me. And I remember how I see this other colleagues of mine at school. They're very identified with that thing of themselves as a struggling student. And I'm like, that's not true, but it's not true for me, but it's true for them. But even though it's not even true all around, but that is the type of truth they create for themselves. That is the personal truth they create from themselves, and they take it from someone else. Ultimately, it all goes back home. So they haven't actually created their own personal truths. But I'm saying you have to let go of the victim identity, because this kid over here will replay that tape, will always find. I mean, I know myself that I have to look out and be careful of my inner saboteur, which is always looking out for situations or incidences where I will feel unlovable or unworthy, or where I'll feel like I'm a victim. It's always, there's that voice in my head which is always going, and it's like, oh, did you hear what he said? It means that, it's like I have to be very aware. That is why meditating is very crucial for me, because when I'm meditating, I see the whole scene. I replay the movie scene, and I see where I'm stuck. I see the blind spots that I cannot see during the day, and I go, oh, okay, I see that I'm still carrying something that happened 2 days ago today. I see that I'm actually ruminating more than I should on that stuff over there. I see it all going. I just watch my thoughts go with no judgment, and then I just see them. And then when I get outside into the world, I actually now I see, and when that voice comes over, I'm like, okay, I saw you, honey. I saw you in the morning. Oh, you're not true. Because my inner saboteur is always down there to bring me down, to really dim my light, to make me feel like a victim. And I have to be very conscious that I don't fall prey to that. And what do I mean falling prey to that? Because whenever a situation comes up where this little boy feels like he's a victim, or he's treated unfairly, trust me, I always want to say something. I always want to defend myself. But my friends know that I don't do that. Why? Because I'm aware. But I'm telling you, sometimes I feel like breaking it down for a bitch, or actually letting them know and have it and say, actually, no, but I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And that's one of the other things that I've actually created as my personal truths. It's an affirmation that I repeat for myself. And I've been picking it out from my universe piggy bank for the last 2 weeks. I don't have time for that. Or I have learned to let that shit off. I have learned to let that shit off like water off a motherfucking dog's back. Just let things go. When somebody says something much I know that is not true, or when somebody's actually defending something that they don't have to defend, or wherever, like just like I was saying, whenever I'm presented or that voice says, oh, she look over there, they say this, they're trying to, you're not worthy over there. Like, I just go, I don't have time for that. It was never personal. It was never personal. Now, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's doable. To me, it's relatively easy because I've been doing this stuff for like, I don't know, isn't it like for many years, it takes time, patience, self-love, and the willingness to do it, not like the will, like no, just like that the ability to stay humble and know that what you're protected and all is well, and whenever you fall prey to it, you pull yourself out. Whenever your ego co-opts a situation where you feel unlovable or you feel like you need to defend yourself, you just pull yourself out of it, because the truth is, the truth doesn't need to be defended. You can say what you want, but the truth remains unbothered, honey. That's what I know too. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I have to always look out for those things. Now, like I said, nurture him. Nurture this little kid over here. Nurture him. Nurture him. How do I do that? Or how do you nurture him? With me, I know that I like to laugh. I like laughing. Laughing is my favorite thing to do. Number two, probably sleeping. But I laugh. I sleep. I do a lot of music. I'm a music freak. I just can't have enough of it. I can't have enough of it. I'm telling you, I think now probably everybody who knows, or everybody who walks, or who comes across me in the morning when I'm walking to school, they know that I'm dancing and I'm singing my lungs out, and I'm having fun, because that's how I keep my inner child happy, connected to me, because I never want to play. I never want to play serious, or I never want to lose that touch of playing for the fun of it, or just reminding myself that this is a dream, honey. This is an illusion that I get to co-create with a power higher than us, and I'm a very powerful co-creator. I am an extension of the power that created the whole universe, and I can handle it. Can you? That's a very good question over there. So I dance and I do it so well. I like it. I like it. And then there's the pictures. I use pictures. If you get into my room, especially now that I live alone, my room is very, the wall. I've just plastered all these pictures of myself and all the people who I love, who I look up to, and Italy. I've put these pictures up there because they remind me of what I like: colors, textures, shapes. Colors, nature, myself, that little boy. I have this pic actually in an A4 paper up into the wall too. And this is the other thing that I do. My phone, I have saved. This is my phone over here. You see this boy over here? Yeah, that's the other picture of me at around whatever 8 or 7 months. Yeah. And I have that picture as my wallpaper in my phone, because I have to remind myself of who it is I'm taking care of, who it is that is actually calling all the shots, and who it is that is actually hurt when people say stuff or whatever, and I have to remind him it was never personal, and the picture story that I told you, I love it. I love it. I never really want to leave home. Nowadays I feel like I don't spend time at home just because I can't get enough of it. And it's so funny. It's so funny because nobody does it. Other people do it for sure, but I don't know anyone in my proximity who actually does it, which is actually odd, because I'm like, where did you lose it? Because as kids, we love pictures, we like bright colors, we love textures, we like shapes, but somehow along the line, we lose that thing, that love for the pictures and colors, because actually we have lost that connection we have to the little child over here. And like I said, I have to be very careful of how I treat myself, how I treat other people, and how I allow myself or this kid to be treated by other people, how I allow other people to treat me and the situations by which I bring myself into. I remember this other day I was going to get nails done by my gorgeous friend, and she made me wait. She made me wait so much. I felt hurt. I felt hurt. I nearly cried. And I was like, just recently, I think it was like 2 months ago, and I was like, okay, that was enough. At the end, because I don't want to hurt my kid. I was so hurt. And the question that came up was, why did I wait? Why did I feel comfortable waiting that long, like 2 hours or whatever? Because that was overdue and I was hurt by it. Eventually, I did break it down. And, it's not really about her, it's actually about me. Because why did I place myself in such a situation where I feel like I have to wait? You know what I mean? A situation where I felt unloved and unlovable. And talk about your inner saboteur over there. You know what I mean? Yes. So now that's very crucial. So you have to be, I have to be, you have to be, I have to be, we have to be very careful of how we allow other people to touch and care about, and how they relate to us. We have to be very careful of that. And the last thing that I can say that I use is, I have this mirror work. Louise Hay, you should really revisit or get to learn about Louise Hay. She has this other thing about mirror work. Before I sleep, or when I wake up, or during the day, I have a mirror, which I carry, Oh my God, look. You see what's happening? Oh my God, I think I'm breaking the fourth wall. But anyways, I look in the mirror and I say, Yummy Wilfred, I love you. Looking in the mirror, just, I love you. You're so sweet. You're so kind. And oh my God, guys, I tell you, my face is gorgeous. It's getting gorgeous and gorgeouser throughout the years and everything. And I just talk to that little kid and the kid in the mirror, and I do my affirmations in the mirror, and it helps. It helps so much. So do it too. Try it too. Now that's what I got for you for this episode. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.